2027 World Juniors roster projections for Canada, USA, Sweden, Finland, Czechia. After a week in Windsor, Ont. For the 2026 World Junior Summer Showcase, the road to the 2027 World Juniors in Edmonton and Red Deer is officially underway for Canada, USA, Sweden, and Finland. The Athletics' Corey Pronman, Scott Wheeler, and Max Bultman all attended games at the WFCU Centre. Here are their roster and lineup projections for each of the 4 teams that participated, plus recent tournament contender Czechia. This year's Team Canada will lack a game-breaker up front, but this roster still features 15 first-round picks plus 2 top 2027 prospects in Dima Zhilkin, a standout in Windsor, and Landon DuPont, who will represent Canada at the Hlinka this week and wasn't in Windsor, but projects as a top 4D on this team.
Love watermelon but hate the sticky cutting mess? This compact 2-in-1 tool slices neat cubes and flips into a retractable fork for easy serving at parties, picnics, or home. Want to get the best verified deal and see full details? Visit grabdeal.us/3 right now.
Advertisement: this age group also missed a game-breaker at its U18 Worlds and still won gold, too. There, it was led by Cole Reshnai, Brady Martin, Breeden Coots, Jack Ivankovic, and several of these blue-liners. Add Caleb Desnoyers, Caleb Malhotra, and Jake O'Brien, who wasn't in Windsor due to tendinitis in his knee, to that group from the U18s, and you've got a very deep crop of well-rounded forwards. As always, expect at least 4 eligible Canadians to be in the NHL, likely Matthew Schiffer, Michael Massey, Gavin McKenna, and Ben Kindle, too. Up front, our last cuts were Dallas Stars prospect Cameron Schmidt, who was on that U18 team and whom Wheeler felt should be on this one to give them a one-shot scorer. Pronman and Bultman were partial to Shebush instead, and Lowe's Angels Kings prospect Jimmy Lombardi. Canada has talked about getting back to running teams out of the building with physicality, which helps the cases of the highly competitive Ethan Cizada, Tampa Bay Lightning, and Chase Harrington, Calgary Flames, who round out the forward group for us. On defense, there was also debate around the Columbus Blue Jackets' Jackson Smith, one of the last cuts for last year's team and a member of that U18 team that won versus New York Rangers prospect Charlie Morrison, a more hard-nosed type. All of Carson Carroll's, Keaton Verhoeff and Smith had up and down weeks, but are top players in their respective age groups. They'll need Ivankovic to be the top goalie in the tournament, a fence from the back end, and a player like O'Brien, who hasn't been a top dog for Canada internationally in the past, to make a lot of plays in order to win gold. Of note, Reshnai and Coots both wore the C this week for Canada. After a disappointing quarterfinal exit at the 2026 World Juniors, Team USA entered the Summer Showcase with a whole lot of questions about this year's team. But the Americans appeared to find a couple of important answers this week. Advertisement top of the list was Wyatt Cullen, who played center all week and looked the part. That checks a big box for a team that looked short on offense down the middle. Cullen's line with Mikey Burcheld and Ethan Wittenbach was Team USA's best line all week, and Wittenbach, who led college hockey in scoring last season, looked like the kind of reliable finisher the Americans will need this winter. Down the lineup, Brooks Rogowski and Teddy Muttrin had strong camps, showing both grit and offense, and both looked ticketed for the roster based on what they showed in Windsor. Carter Sanderson, who had a hat trick on day one, was another standout who blended production with some edge. The Americans beat Canada 7-2 in Saturday's finale, and while it's just summer hockey, that margin and the fact they didn't have Will Horkoff, Cullen Potter, or Cole McKinney, all projected top 9 players in December, is encouraging for a team looking to rebound from last year's showing. The top 9 is still light on proven scoring, especially after a quiet week from first-round pick J.P. Hurlburt kept him off our projection, but Potter and Horkoff should bring some pop, and draft-eligible Sammy Nelson looks like a well-rounded pivot who can shoot it. On the blue line, Chase Reed gives the Americans a strong returning no. 1 and the blue line group here all had good showings at the summer showcase. Blale brings excellent puck moving, and Barnett and Skok are smart, mobile defenders, while Barnhill and Rombach look like go-to penalty killers with physicality. Carter Amico, the extra defenseman here, had a good week too and brings size, mobility, and an ability to lay the big hit. Brady Noling didn't play in Windsor, but is a returner from last year's team in net, and Ryder Fedorov was highly impressive despite being undersized. Advertisement, it's not a loaded U.S. team, and they'll still have to prove they have the top-end ability to keep up with Canada and Sweden, but the outlook looks a little better for the Americans than it did 2 weeks ago. Sweden will have a strong contingent at this year's tournament, even without Ivar Stenberg or Anton Frondell, and are a threat to repeat as gold medalists. Their 2008 age group won gold at the U18s, their 2007s won silver. And although they will lack a true star up front outside Viggo Björk, they will have one of the tournament's deepest sets of skaters. Victor Klingsell and Philip Ekberg, for example, may not be top NHL prospects, but they are excellent juniors who have consistently scored internationally. Sasha Boumedian has struggled in college, but he has been a top international defenseman for years. Sweden will also have strong depth in net. Love Herenstam is a top junior goalie, and Mans Goose is an excellent backup. If we had to pick one clear weakness in Sweden, it's the lack of a premier puck mover on its blue line. Boumedian and Malt Gustafsson are very good players, but their puck play is average. They'll need undrafted Oliver Esierström, one of the top D in the second-tier Hockey Allsvenskan last year, to make some plays from the back end. This will be a team defined by a high compete level, a defining trait for all of Björk, Genborg, Gastrin, Command, Stixelius, and Krantz, and its quantity of shooters, a top quality for eyes Wozniak, Lagerberg Hone, Hermansson, Nordmark, Klingsell, and Ekberg. The Czechs enter this year's World Juniors with medals in 4 straight tournaments, and they've got a real chance to make it 5. Their depth up front drops off quicker than Canada, USA, and Sweden's, but sometimes you only need 2 or 3 lines of forwards, a strong blue line and good goaltending to win at the World Juniors, and they have that. Advertisement: Wojtek Chihar was a top player in last year's event, and all of Adam Binok, Vaclav Nestrashil, and Adam Novotny are returnees who should be stars in this year's. Their blue line has a little bit of everything too, with top international D in these age groups like Radim Mrtka, Max Senichka, and Jakub Vainchek. A star prospect in 2028's Mateusz Mikulik, missing Hlinka this week due to an injury we're told isn't serious, and a third-pairing power play quarterback in Vladimir Dravicki. They've also got the best goalie depth in the event, with 2 returnees in Mikkel Orshilak and Andrej Stebatok, and a high-end third-stringer in either Martin Solevic, who just backstopped them to bronze at U18 Worlds, or Tobias Trejbal, the first goalie picked in the 2026 draft. Our final cut was the undrafted Dominik Ripa, who has been a good player for their 08s and a part of their U20 team this summer. It's not a loaded prospect year for the Finns, but as always at major international tournaments, underrate them at your own peril. Despite not bringing some of its top names to Windsor, Finland was plenty pesky as always, mainly due to strong showings from a top line made up of Jeremy Virtanen, Jesse Pesainen, and Oppo Katavisto, all of whom earned spots in this projection on the strength of their weeks. Tavi Arvala and Rasmus Kemirainen were 2 more we considered as undersized players with some jam. Up front, though, the Finnish lineup that actually takes the ice in Red Deer will be defined by players who weren't participating this week. Oliver Suvanto gives them a strong 2-way pivot atop the lineup, and Macias Vanhanen was the leading scorer for WHL champs Everett last season. The biggest question, though, might be the status of scoring power winger Oscar Hemming, who left Finland for Boston College last season and was subsequently left off the Finns U18 Worlds roster. We included Hemming here, though he wasn't in Windsor, because of how valuable he would be to this team as a big-bodied scorer. But it's entirely possible he's passed over again after leaving his Finnish club before his contract was up. Advertisement: we also included a couple of future draft names to watch in 2027, eligible Luca Santala, and 2028, eligible Paavo Fugelberg in depth roles after their performances at U18s. The blue line has a bit more prospect flavor to it, with Las Boleas returning after being one of the top-scoring defensemen at last year's tournament. Samu Alalori and Juho Piaparinen locking down the right side in the top four, and Verdi Svensk skating, adding some dynamic quality. For a team that may not score much, a lot will come down to goaltending, and while Patrick Kirkola is a returner, he didn't actually play last year. That and the lack of star power, especially if Hemming isn't there, are reasons for concern, but it's still Finland, and it's still a major threat to end someone's tournament early.